I'm one of the instructors with Artisan. I'm hearing a lot of somebody. Hello, Joel, is that you? Yes, that's okay. So today's lesson is going to be on action calibration, specifically working with your grand actions. And so this is something that is kind of stressful for a lot of people is what do you do? What tools do you use? How do you do this? And it's really not as hard as you would think. And the reality is when I'm doing these in the home, I'm usually pretty much only using two tools in when I'm doing the majority of these action calibrations, and that is the Artisan gauge right here, which you all have seen these. These are available at Supply 88. And specifically, I use these for my blow distance. And so that is the distance between here and here. And that allows me to see kind of where my hammer height is. So I'm going to use this tool quite a bit during the lesson, just because I want to mark my first and last hammers, and usually one in the middle with this guy. And then the only other tool that I really use, because again, most pianos use this tool, it's just a capstan wrench, and I'll use this not only for the capstans to adjust my blow distance, but I'll also use it to adjust my let off. And so for my basic action calibration, my go-to is really those two adjustments. It's really adjusting my blow distance, my hammer line, evening them out, and it's my let off. And so with those two adjustments and making kind of those calibrations, you really set the piano up for a whole nother layer of success. And so your customers will usually just absolutely love that. Hold on just a second. So one of the things to keep in mind when you're doing these action calibrations is a lot of people get into they get a little ahead of themselves and they start doing too much. And so set yourself like just a handful of things. Again, the let off is a good one. Even if you're going to do one or the other with your action calibrations, if I had to choose between the two, I'm always going to choose my my blow distance, to be honest with you, because that is something that 9 times out of 10, I see the hammers are way too high so that there's way too much aftertouch, or they're way too low so that there's not enough aftertouch. And so by simply using this gauge, I can stick it down in between the strings, and then that allows me to go ahead and figure out what my next steps are. And so what I'm going to be doing is actually switching this. And so, again, I'm at the piano right now, and I'm going to be going and just inserting this tool down in there, the gauge, in between the strings and the hammers. And so it's a pretty simple thing to do. Again, your standard measurement for this is the 1 7/8. That's your standard blow distance. And so that's an industry standard. You have a couple of these industry standards. One is a 10 millimeter key dip. You have a 1 7/8 blow distance, and you have a 1/8 inch let off. And so those are kind of your rules of thumb. And so what I typically do is simply lower it in between the damper heads right here on my first and last, and I stick it down in there, and I literally just look at and see where I'm at. And so in this case, I've already kind of looked at it, and in this particular piano, I'm actually way too high, like by a quarter, no, yeah, at least a quarter inch, which means I'm getting way too much aftertouch, which is true. There's way too much aftertouch in this piano. So I simply holding this, I'm just trying to think. You're not going to be able to see it that well with this. I'm going to go ahead and change my view if you bear with me. Go ahead, and if you all have any questions as I'm going, go ahead and ask them. Let's try this. No, I'm going to do the opposite view. Let's see, let's go audio. All right, so here we go. I'm ready to kind of look in here. And so we're going on a little ride here. So what we're going to be looking for is through this crack right here. So I'm going through, and it's really in between that pin block and those flanges. And so I'm peering through there, and I'm looking to see, okay, where is my gauge landing? And so that is the angle. Just so you all see, this is the angle that I am actually looking at. And so I want to see, okay, where is my gauge versus where it is at? And can you all see that back there? I'm trying to kind of wobble it back and forth. You see that? Joel, can you see that on your end? That gauge on the very back, you could see where it's aligned with those hammers.
Do you think you could use your flashlight maybe to
That's a good
point
question.
back there?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. So here we go. So now do you see it right there? I'm kind of wobbling it.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. I'm peering in here, and I'm looking at that, and I see all these hammers need to go down a good 1/4 inch. And so that's what I'm going to, my first step in doing this is I'm going to go ahead and lower the capstans, thus lowering my blow distance. So again, what we use is just the simple capstan adjustment tool. And if I could find it. Yeah, there we go. And so what I'm going to do is simply go down to these capstans and start lowering them. And what I do is I simply just lower the first and last in each section. So again, I'm down at this capstan, just lowering it, and I'm peering in there periodically to see, okay, how close am I? So we're looking down in there, and again, this is the exact angle that you're going to be wanting to look at. So here we go. We're going to look at it. And so we're still a little high. I want to be able to go down there, so I'm going to lower that far left one just a little bit more, so that we can go ahead and get it just right. And again, I would say that when you're doing this, maybe start with just one of these adjustments. And so this is, again, the first one. So now I'm looking out there, that gauge is right in line with it. So I've set that far left one. It looks good. And now you'll be able to see how different that looks in comparison to the others. You see how low the far left one is? Crazy low in comparison to the others. But I have just the right amount of aftertouch now, which is crazy to think that you have to go down that low. And you would think that, wow, there's got to be no aftertouch after that. But no, it's all good. So now I'm just going to go to this one right here, which is the far right one. And as you can see, it's already lower. I think I might have already tried to adjust that one down as a test. So I'm going to go ahead doing the same process, drop my gauge down in there. And again, I'm just doing these all inside the piano, and you'll get really quick, really efficient at this as you do it more. So yeah, I'm looking down there, and my gauge is right in line with that hammer. So I'm good to go. If I'm looking at this now, I see that I have one end and then the opposite end. And I'm simply going to go through and lower all of these capstans. So these are the capstans right here. I'm putting the tool in there. I'm just going to lower them all to that spec. Let's see if I can get a better angle here so we can see this. So questions about what I'm doing so far. Does this all make sense? It's one of those things that once you do it, it does make more sense, but it takes a while to kind of go through the motions or get your hands on a grand piano and actually do that. But I'm simply going from left to right, and I'm lowering all of these hammers down to where I set my samples. Again, my samples are the first and last. A lot of times what I'll do if there's a big section with, 30 hammers in it like this, a lot of times I'll set a middle sample as well, just so that I can kind of keep that straight line. Victor, is this something that you do in the piano?
In the piano,
you do it outside?
Outside. I'll do the samples first and last, and then I'll pull it out and either do it there in my lap or I'll take it to a table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to do the same thing, but then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get really quick at doing it in the piano. It lessens the possibility of me breaking anything. And so that's really why I've started to do it this way. And it just, for me, every minute that I can spend just in the piano doing it means another maybe service that I can do. And so that has been
that makes sense. Are you sitting on the floor or do you kneel?
I'm literally sit buns on the ground.
Buns on the ground.
So
okay, that's what I have to do.
Yeah, and so now I see.
There's a pretty bad echo.
Oh, is that me? Who's on? Can you hear? Is that better now, Stephanie?
I think so, yeah.
So you can see I'm starting on that left-hand side, moving my way down. And again, I'm just simply adjusting these capstans downward. And you'll be able to do, after you do this several times, I mean, maybe several dozen times, but you're going to get to the point where you're able to do this pretty quickly. You'll be able to do this certainly within about 20 minutes. And you're going to be amazed at how quickly you can get this particular job done. I would say that I would say 3/4 of the time I'm actually raising my hammer line as opposed to lowering it. Again, this is kind of a fluke one where I'm actually lowering it, but usually I'm actually having to raise the hammer line is what I've found. And by, again, raising this hammer line, what I would be doing is adding aftertouch, potential aftertouch. And so I'm just going to simply finish up this section. And usually what I'll do is I'll do like this rough pass where I'm just kind of quick and dirty, getting everything within reason. And then I'll go through and just kind of refine it. Another reason I like to keep it in the piano, just so everybody knows, is when you bring it out of the piano, when you put it on your lap, when you put it on the table, a lot of times it can give you a different, it could be one way outside the piano and then you slide it back in and it could be totally off. And that happens more often than you would think. So right there, I've lowered everything. It looks pretty good. And now I'm simply going to go through and just say, okay, this one's a little high, this one's a little low, and just kind of refine it as best I can. And again, this is something that you can start to push yourself and be like, okay, just for practicing, I'm going to go ahead and raise the hammer line. I'm going to go ahead and lower the hammer line and just get used to the motion of doing all of this. And that is a really good kind of just practicing thing that you can do. So I've gone ahead and done, that whole section. And so I'm kind of crossing that off the list of my calibration. And so this, what I would tell the customers, like, listen, your piano needs a little bit of calibration work. All the hammers are out of spec. They've either lowered or they're just too high and we're not getting the right feel, the right touch. It's not playing correctly. And so once I've done this, once I've lowered or raised my hammer line, again, using some kind of a tool, a gauge. I'm a big fan of these, so much so that we kind of put our name on it. This is a great tool because, again, it slides down in between the strings and you're able to make those adjustments. So let's just assume this takes you, a half an hour. So again, we're talking about like a 1 hour additional service. Say you're spending a half an hour doing this where you're lowering the hammers to right where they should be or raising them up where they should be. The next thing that I like to do is actually the let off. I'm a big fan of doing the let off because I feel like that also makes a big difference. Now, and just so you know, this is pretty much the angle that I'm looking at whenever I'm doing my let off. I'm trying to, can I get this either left or right hand side angle? And I'm literally doing it as much as I can. A lot of times you're able to do this by just moving your fingers and moving these with your fingers. In this case, I can't. They're too stiff. So I actually have to use my capstan adjuster and feed it into these the holes of the dowels. And so when you have a situation like this, you're gonna kind of go like this. You're gonna go kind of like look up, see where you're at. Okay, I'm a little bit too far away. And then you're literally gonna come down here and see what needs to be moved. You're like, okay, it's this far one. I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there. Raising this let off dowel up and then coming back. So it's funny because this is one of those tasks that you're going to get tired by the end of it, because you're basically doing squats for about 30 minutes. You're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now you can do this thing where you use a let off rack. But again, I usually find that it's more accurate and it saves you time if you could just do it in the piano. Now, I've gotten so used to doing it that I'm able to keep my hand down here and using two hands, one to kind of feel around and the other to use the tool. I'm able to stay up here and go through my let off. But that takes a little while to kind of get used to doing that. And I do highly recommend you do this. You get to the point where you do not need this gauge. This is going to save you so much time over time to when you can get to the point where you know, okay, this is the spacing, this is how far away I need this hammer to let off, and you actually are able to just visualize and do that every time. So again, the more you're able to do that, where you're not necessarily slowed down by the gauges, that's going to be a big thing. You're going to find that your proficiency, just the speed of what you're able to do, just goes skyrockets once you can visually see, specifically with the let off. Once you get the let off, and that's this little part right here, roughly 1/8 inch. Once you get to the point where you don't have to look down and kind of measure what you're doing against a gauge, you will be so much faster. You will be so much more effective. But that does take a little bit of time. Joel, what do you think? Does this sound exciting? Does that sound like something you're going to do?
Yes. I'm going through the source book for the PTG thing, so
Oh,
go through that, and so all this stuff really helps. Thank you. They suggested in there for a measuring tool too. You could take a 1/8 inch piece of like brass dowel, or bend it.
yeah, that's a good one too. And that's essentially what this is, but it's just a more expensive version of it, and it has a couple more. Adjustments that can be made. But this is something, and Michael, you have a piano right there in your home, so you being able to kind of practice this. And one thing that you can do is just, like I said, lower the hammer line, raise it up, and just try to get through it as quick as possible. It's kind of neat. It's really neat because, Michael, you're one of the first people that I've ever met that actually has taken time to simply hone in with their own pianos their skills. And with myself, I was doing more of an apprenticeship, and I had somebody to show me, and we would just do it when a piano arrived. You would show me what to do. But the idea of, in a safe, controlled environment, be able to work on your own piano and go through these calibration steps, that's just huge. It's really cool. So kudos to you. I never really thought about that, despite working for years at the, with PTA. It really kind of opened my mind to this idea of honing in your skills at home within your own piano and just going through all the motions. So let's just say we've gone through and we've reset the let off. The let off's good. And you're like, man, I got some time. I got more time, and I want to go ahead and just wow this customer. One of the next things that I would recommend looking into is simply this. It is actually doing, let's see if I can do this. I'm going to go ahead and change the effect. Is going through your back checking. And so the way that I do this is I like to kind of see where it's at. So I'll kind of hit 3 hammers at once and in kind of both sides of the sections. And I'll see where they're lining up. And I'm like, okay, they're fairly even with each other. A lot of times I'll find something like this, where I'll go through and like, okay, that one right there is significantly lower. And I'll kind of look at that and like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and slide the action in. And then from my top view, I'm going to look through and see where that's landing. So I'll go down here and I'll simply play the note and hold it down and see where it's lining up with this back check gauge. Again, this has several different gauges on this side. This is my 5/8, just over a 1/2 inch. And so I'll line it up like that and see. And I can tell that the one that I just lowered is just way too low. So let's say just for this as a test, or just this as an example, let's just say that my middle one right there is actually the one that we need to go with. Actually, that's not a great angle. Let's see if I can find a better angle. There we go. So what I do is I'm always raising my hand about, I don't know, 3-4 inches. And that's where, it's to simulate the strings. And so as much as I can, I'm hitting all 3 evenly at the same time. So let's just pretend that that middle one is where we want all these to be. So I'm simply keeping my hand above the hammers like so. There we go. I'm liking that. And then what I do is I move to the next 3. Actually, it's really only the next 2, because this now is my new guide. So again, lowering these 2. Does that make sense? Again, now the next 2. The best thing that you can do is learn how to hit all 3 at once at the exact same speed and keeping your hand above it to simulate where it's hitting the strings. And again, it honestly takes a fair amount of practice. And even my brother Adam, who's been doing this for years, kind of told me, he was like, hey, yeah, funny enough, back checking is one of those things that I kind of dread, and it, for whatever reason, takes him a long time. But you can see as you kind of get your rhythm, it works out pretty well. Now, this is a scenario where I highly do recommend you set your first as well as your last hammer, and then one in the center to where you like it. Because that way you're going through, and then once you hit the center one, you can see, oh, I'm either too low or I'm either too high, and reset for the remaining notes. And that is one of those adjustments that just makes everything that much more consistent. And so I would say that 9 times out of 10, the hammers are back checking way too far from the strings. And so by raising them up is what we're doing, is we're moving those hammers closer to the strings as they're checking closer to the strings so they can reset faster, easier. And that will make a dramatic effect on the playing, the feel, and the touch of the piano. So that's a big one. And then finally, the last one that I'll do is simply doing my drop. Again, I'm not saying you have to do by any means that you have to do all of this at the time of your service. I'm just saying that these are options for you to kind of consider. And I think that that's a big one, is don't think that you have to do all of these. Because the reality is, especially as you're starting, you're not going to have time to. You're just not. It might take you an hour to just move the hammer line, and that's okay. But the next thing that I would do is simply adjust my drop. And as you can see, they're dropping just way too far. And so I would simply just lessen the amount of drop. Again, what we want is an 1/8 inch below let off. So let's just say let off is right here. We want this to, and one way of doing it is you simply use your drop screwdriver and adjust them down. And you can even just play it like this, go through let off with the next one, and then adjust that right one with the drop screw. You might want to see that. I'll show you that. Hold on just a second and I'll go get tools, because somebody showed me this as a technique, and I'm actually a big fan of it. So hold on just a second. So this is the drop screw regulator. I'm a big fan of this particular one. You can get these on Shaft, you can get these on Howard. But the nice thing about doing this technique, I'm going to see if I can hold it and do it at the same time. We'll see. We'll see. Again, this wouldn't have been an issue if my cameras were turned on. We'll get it. Eventually we'll get it. You guys just get to go along for the ride. Feels like a amusement park ride or a roller coaster. That's a pretty good angle. So I'm just going to go through, and again, this is the drop screw right here, and I'm going to raise it upwards because there's too much drop. I just want that little drop. But again, one of the things you do need to do is before you go and do one and then go through all the other 88, slide it back into the piano, because you might find that when you slide it in, it changes and you may be adding too much drop or not enough. And that's happened to me so many times. But I like this. This is a nice little bobble. Yep, like that. And so one of the things you can do is simply this. You see how much lower this far right, the right hammer is to the left? That's because this is the one I've already adjusted my drop, and it's good. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and go through let off, then raise this other one up by simply adjusting the screw up or down. And this is a nice little trick. You're just kind of evening them out. So it's just as easy as that. And again, a lot of times you're going to come to pianos that are way further out. You're going to find pianos that are more like this. Just really bouncing, really bobbling down. And a lot, actually, that's what I usually see, is something more like that. Here's what you want. Here's what you're usually finding. And that, my friends, is not great. And when you actually go to fix that, your customers are usually pretty amazed, like, wow, that is so, they'll feel that in their fingers that much different. It's just right there at their fingertips when you can adjust that drop. And so those are like 3 or 4 things that you as the technician, you as the expert, get to decide on as you're servicing the piano. I don't know if this is a crazy effect. Do you see that? It looks like ethereal. Like I'm in heaven or something.
I think you might need to wipe your camera's lens.
Oh, no, it's probably true. Probably not a really cool effect. It's just that my greasy fingers. Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. So I would say, as you're getting started, if you're in their first year or two, I'm guessing it'll take you 45 minutes to an hour to do one of these services, one of these calibrations. I could be wrong. You could be surprisingly fast at it, for just starting out. But the reality is, it takes several times, several I would say potentially 5 to 10 rounds of each of these to get to the point where you're able to do it in half an hour. And Victor, I don't know if you can weigh on this. You're a little bit further than some folks. Some folks. Bernie, what are your?
No, that's definitely true. It does take. Yeah, at first I thought I was like, I can go through this pretty easy. But yeah, like the checking, it's a little more difficult than you realize because you're reaching back there. You kind of don't know what you're looking at. Same for the let off. If it has the style that you have with the button, or if it has the other ones with the eye kind of looking thing, it just depends. Sometimes the other ones are a little harder to work on sometimes. But yeah, I would say it takes maybe 5 to 6 pianos before you get a little more comfortable and you don't have to look at everything. You can kind of just do things by feel.
Yeah.
But I still take a while on let off and checking. Those are the two I'm trying to get faster at.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long does it to do full let off?
It takes about an hour.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, but like the hammer line, pretty fast. Yeah, about 20 minutes or 15 minutes. Drop really quick too. I use that same technique. You can do it pretty fast. And checking, it's about 30 minutes maybe, but I'm trying to get faster.
What is slowing you down?
What's slowing me down? For the back checking, I think I'm just I don't know. I think I try to get it a little too perfect. That's not a bad thing, but I think sometimes I'll focus way too much on one note instead of moving on. And if I'm not paying attention, like what you're saying, I try to set more than 3 samples. I'll probably do like 5 because I'll do like 10 hammers and then I get to my sample and it's way off. So I'm working on that, trying to get that better. And what else did I say? The let off, again, it's just getting comfortable with feeling it without having to look.
Yeah.
But you're right about the drop screws. I've set them so high that I couldn't get the action back in. And I had to chisel away at the pin block. That's the worst.
I would say that's more with the rebuilder who put the pin block in and not you. But
yeah, it was rebuilt. So I think that was a rebuilder issue.
Just saying it from experience, because I did that one, and then we had to spend 2 days planing it down.
Yeah, that's the worst.
This doesn't have to be done in an hour. It may be one of those things that you're saying, hey, I'm going to go ahead and tune your piano, Mrs. Smith, and it could use some action calibration. These are 3 things that I think would make a big difference. I have another 3 hours that I can spend doing it. It's going to be this much money. So just kind of release in your mind this idea of the time that it needs to take. Because the reality is, I'm sure 99 out of 100 pianos, nobody's ever even attempted to do this on your customer's piano. And so you're getting a flavor for it. You're getting used to it. Cut yourself some slack. If it does take you an hour per one of these things, that's fine. It'll take you less time in the future. But this is something that does make a meaningful difference on the customer's piano, and it really unlocks the potential that your customer can have in their piano. And so go ahead and feel free to breathe. Know that, okay, even if just today I'm going to spend an hour and lower the hammer line, and then hey, I'm going to come back next week and we're going to spend a couple more hours doing a couple of these other things that need to be done. And one of the things that's nice about this gauge is you can kind of show them, hey, I adjusted one of these to the proper blow distance, and this is what it should be versus what it is. Do you want me to recalibrate this so that it's where it needs to be? And usually when they see that, they're like, oh, wow, that's where it's supposed to be? Absolutely. Go ahead and do that. Another thing that I like to keep you abreast of everything that's going on at Artisan. And so we've been working with our own technicians in-house and kind of how to explain or how to propose work. And it's simply this. It's simply as easy as, hey, Mrs. Smith, I know that I'm scheduled just to do the tuning. However, there are some other maintenance things that could be done that I actually have time for that would really help your piano just kind of be where it needs to be and help it play better. Do you want me to do that? Yeah, how much is it? It's an extra $200, extra $100, whatever the case may be for you. Yeah, that sounds great. You have time to do it now? Perfect. So again, just slowly moving that needle in the right direction, because these pianos deserve it, your customers deserve it, and the reality is you know how to do it. You kind of owe it to yourself to push yourself and get to the point where you're doing it. So that's kind of my spiel on it, because I'll have to say it's working with our company. It's overwhelmingly working with all the technicians now that they're doing it, now that they're offering. And we don't call it upselling. It's just offering. It's offering to level up their service. So I'm a big fan of it. These are simple things you can do. I mean, we have gauges for these. We have the tools. It's not rocket science. You simply need to offer it and know how to make these adjustments. And this is, it's pretty simple. It just takes time to get to where you're proficient at it. Opening it up to questions. Anybody? And I'm really interested to get going. Like, Victor, are you finding success in offering any of these types of things?
Go ahead, Joel. I'll answer after. Go ahead.
The PTG has a booklet that gives you suggested times to charge for each job. So if you're still slow on a job, you can still do the work and charge them for what it should be.
Yeah, that's the G Piano Works, I think, is the labor guide. And that's a great start. It kind of gives you an idea. And what it may be is that you're like, hey, right now as I'm starting out, I'm only going to be charging $50 an hour. And you know that it's going to take you the full 8 hours to do this job. That's $400. As you level up, I mean, our shop rate is $150 an hour. So that same 8 hours is $1,200 or whatever. And then because you're going to raise your prices as you get better, as more proficient. So I love that labor guide for that reason.
Yeah, I like what you said, David. Yeah, you're not upselling or upcharging. You're just offering because it needs it. It's the truth. It's not like we're lying about it. But I've been trying to do that more often. But yeah, I do feel bad because sometimes to them the tuning was already expensive. But I'm trying to get out of that because we're trying to offer them a better piano at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one of the things that's nice that we found is that in having the 3 different offerings, this tuning only, and just that really helps people set the expectations so that when you're reiterating that, Mrs. Smith, I know I'm just scheduled to do just a tuning, but I am noticing these other things that it could use, and I do have time. Do you want to upgrade your service so that I can do this stuff? And usually there's a couple things. Is one is you've affirmed and reiterated, I'm only here for the tuning. I'm only here for the tuning. You remember that? Yeah, I do remember that. That's all you're here for. Great. We're on the same page there. The next thing is your piano needs more maintenance. It could have things done to it. I'm noticing things. Okay. The next thing is I have the time. That's the big one. I have the time and I can do it now. And that would save you money. I don't have to come back. And then how much more is it? Is it $500 more? No. Oh, it's another $100, $150 more? Yes, do it. That's what I'm finding. Again, we have packages. We have bronze, silver, gold packages that are anywhere between $500 and $2,500. Those are bigger sells, right? But putting another $100 into your piano, $150 into your piano is kind of a no-brainer for most people. I would say 9 out of 10 people, it's kind of a no-brainer. Yeah, it could use a little bit more stuff. Yes, I would like it to work better. Yes, you're here. I like you. Do it. No, it's been fun trying to change the industry standard and the protocol. And I think that we all together are working towards that same goal. And I think that we're getting to elevate the service that customers can expect. And that's fun.
Now, do you also do this kind of same thing for the cleaning? Like if you're already there, is it going to be, if you already have the action out, is it cheaper if they schedule the cleaning separate?
Yeah, it is. I mean, for me, I'm more into the nuts and bolts and the way the piano plays than the piano looks. And so a lot of times I'm going to kind of hone in on more of the way it plays. And that's just me personal as a tech. We have Alan up north who's very cosmetic, and he'll probably go for more of the looks of it. So that's where some of our own wants and desires kind of come out, I guess.
That's true. Yeah. Well, because I feel like we get a lot of calls about cleaning, or if we're already there, like it's kind of dirty. And so
I'm not sure.
You cut out. Can
you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure, though, if lowering it is the solution if we're already there, or what do you think?
So I'm a big fan of having roughly 3 appointments per day, and not 5, 6, 4, whatever, 3 appointments per day. That gives you 2 solid hours in every customer's house if they want it. So what I would do is, if it saves them a service call fee, if it saves them, half of that travel, I would discount that travel. So say your rate is $200 like ours is for a service call. A half an hour of that is the drive itself to get there. I mean, that's built into the price. So out of that $200, maybe $65 or $70 of that is the traveling to get there. And so might as well discount that. You're already there.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's a good way of like, you know what, I'm already here. I don't have to do another travel. Let's do that. You'll get a discount on this. I'm also a big fan of packaging things together. Like, hey, I'm not just going to lower this hammer line. I'm also going to clean your soundboard. Because you and I both know that this hammer blow distance is way off. I need to adjust this. But in their minds, the soundboard, they've kind of made a little mention of it. It's going to take you 5 minutes to clean that soundboard, but that's just another value added. And then you're going to also come across people that just, the woman that I was at today, I was just doing an express 1-hour tuning. And I did the same thing. I said, hey, your piano it sounds good now, but it really is hard to play. There's all this extra lost motion. Things are not calibrated right. Would you, I didn't have time now to do it, but at the next service, do you want me to go ahead and just kind of pencil you in for a $500 service plus your tuning? Yes. Great. Perfect. So in 6 months, she's going to have that done. And so 6 months from now, we're going to look at the schedule and be like, great, that's already there. And so even if they're not going to do it then and there, if you don't have time, if they don't have the money, always be thinking of what's the next thing though that you can do for them. And maybe we're just pushing it out a year or 6 months.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I've also noticed, like what Stacy was talking about, or you've also talked about, is the options. They've been choosing that middle option. Like the first one is the basics, just what they wanted. And then the second one, just a little bit more. And then the third, I'll throw in like whatever I think it actually needs. But they kind of always choose that middle one, which is good because it's more than what they initially thought.
Here's another thing that we're going to start doing. I like that. And you're right. And to that point, another thing that we're going to be doing, and if I were in any of your shoes, I would already be doing this because you don't have an outrageous amount of customers per week that you need to call. I would call all of your customers 2 days in advance. 2 days. And so you're going to say, hey, this is Victor with Afina Pianos service. And I'm going to be coming out 2 days from now in the morning. Are we still okay with that? Yes. Okay. Well, I'm really excited to work on your piano. What kind of music gets played on it? Like, oh, it's classical. Great. Do you like the tone of it? I want to set us up for a great service. And I want to make sure I have all the parts and supplies. Also, I noticed that you chose just the standard tuning, which is great. Do you know if there's anything else? And then they're like, you know what? There is kind of more. Now that you mention it, okay, I'm going to leave myself a little bit more time just in case I find some stuff and we decide to do more. That sounds great. This catered experience that and so what it's going to do is several things. You get to introduce yourself and get to know them right, beforehand. You get to make sure that they're not going to cancel with you last minute and you can't fill that slot. And third, you're teeing it off for yourself to kind of show the expectations, and you're probably going to offer more work and they're going to take you up on it. You don't have that many customers. This is one of those things. Spend an hour, less than that. It's probably 20 minutes a day doing that for the service calls you have 2 days from now. And I can guarantee you, it will dramatically increase the experience. Probably the financially, it will pay for itself because you're going to not lose appointments and you're massaging the experience to be just phenomenal. And they're going to want to do more and more work with you. And we're going to be starting to do that company-wide. We're going to be having what we're actually literally calling, because we're really big into the idea of a restaurant, we're going to be hiring what is essentially a maitre d'. In a very fine, high-end restaurants, these folks are actually being called, the diners are being called days or a week in advance, asking about food allergies, telling them we're excited to work with, to have you dine with us. Are there any things you're excited about? And it's just like adds to this incredible experience. Why not do that with piano service? Why not do that with your companies? You will never be without work if you do this type of stuff, because they are going to tell everybody about you and they will never leave you. So just another food for thought. I'll let you know as we start doing that how it goes, but we're excited about that.
I think that's a great idea. And yeah, I like trying to make the experience different than other services, like just the plumber coming over or all those other things. It should be different. Oh, it is different.
It is different. These are attached to people's souls in a way, their emotions. And and it's more meaningful than a dishwasher. We're not handymen that go and work on appliances. These are a part of the family. And that is a really cool thing to do. And going back to the restaurants, the best restaurants in the world are not the best because they have the best chef. And I didn't realize this. They're the best because everything combined makes this experience that is just jaw-dropping. It's the food, yes, the chef, what he can cook, but it's the maitre d', it's the service staff, it's the ambiance, it's all of these things. So don't think for a moment that you can't compete because you're not as good as the really good techs in the area, the head chefs. You can create something that's beautiful and magical, and that will be more meaningful than some really great tech that just is able to do a quick tuning. So that's food for thought. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to inspire. That's what Pianocraft is, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Is Stacy okay?
Yes, she's at the dentist right now.
No.
So she's at the dentist right now, and so she's, I think, just having a checkup. She thought it was for tomorrow, and then she realized, I don't know, an hour and a half ago. She's like, "Oh no, it's today." I'm like, "Oh, got it. We'll muscle through it." So yeah, I don't know if she's getting numbed up. So I'm probably gonna call her afterwards, if nothing else, to hear her if she is numbed up. Your mouth. I'll tell her you all said hi though.
Yeah. I have a question. Have you ever been called out and you get there and it's a digital piano?
No.
Mm.
We do so much legwork ahead of time that it doesn't come up. This is another reason, by the way, to do the call. Because that just killed a portion of your day.
Yeah. I went all the way out there. It was like an hour away.
Oh, I'm sorry, Victor. Oh.
And I thought it was a player system the way she was talking about it, because they are electrical, but no, it was a full digital.
What we have done is we've run into pianos where they're a square grand or they're a bird cage, and we just don't touch them. So we have had that where we did find out, no, it's an acoustic piano, but it's one of these archaic, design that we just, no thanks, sorry.
Now you tell us.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry,
yeah.
That's the worst, because you can't even really charge for them. I mean, I guess you could.
Yeah.
It's like, that might be a bad deal for you.
Yeah, I took it apart. I figured out how to take it apart, and my brother is a computer scientist and a computer engineer. So I took tons of pictures and sent everything to him and called him. He's like, "Oh yeah," and he knew right away it was wrong.
Can you-
Almost. You're kind of cutting in.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank God he knew what was wrong with it. But the piano was only 20 years old, and the lady was like, "Well, what do I do with it?" And
You
I was
mean
like, "Well, I don't think
the computer was only 20 years, Victor?
or the whole keyboard, but yeah, like it was only 20 years old, and she said she paid like 10,000 for it when she got it, and because it's one of those that looks like a baby grand,
Yeah.
and so and she was like, "Well, what do I do with it?" And I was like, "Well, I don't think they make that part anymore." And she was so sad, and like that's also why I'm like, why do people buy digitals? Like, if you just would have had an acoustic, it would have lasted for 100 years.
You know what? As much as I'm sad for your customer about this, it's also music to my ears to see, like, because there is a difference. There is.
Yeah.
It is a computer. You're literally buying a computer.
Yes, exactly. And I told her, I was like, what?
20 years ago.
Yeah, and I told her, I was like, she's like, you can't get it to work at all. I was like, well, imagine you try to use a computer from 20 years ago. It's probably not going to work, right? And she was laughing. And I was like, yeah, exactly. It's not going to work. And so in my head, I'm like, it's like if you're trying to use your phone for 20 years, it's not going to work.
No, technology.
Yeah.
That's one of the beautiful things about technology in the piano is it's 150, the same technology for the last 150 years.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah,
her we
and I
have all
told her-
sorts of suggestions.
What's that,
Yeah.
Joel?
Tell her we have all sorts of suggestions of what to do with it.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
gasoline and matches.
Yeah. Yeah, and I told her I could probably find that part. Maybe I could find the part, but I was like, even then, I can't guarantee you it's gonna work. I was like, if this was a real piano, I could guarantee you, like, if I did this, this would work.
Yeah.
But with the computer, I was like, I don't know. I could replace it. It still couldn't work. Only God knows.
Well, I love that you were able to go the extra mile and actually help her a little bit. So that's cool.
Yeah, and she did pay. That was good. She's like, well, you came all the way out here, so she
That's
paid
so
for my time. Thank God.
No kidding.
I have a quick question, actually.
Yeah, Stephanie.
I'm actually pretty interested in also at some point, probably once I get more comfortable with the acoustic pianos, I do want to learn like how to work on digital keyboards. Do you know anybody that does that, or like how to even learn that kind of stuff? I know that there's like a lot of electronics and it's a whole different ballpark. I know that.
Yeah. I only know of what area are you in the Seattle area, Stephanie?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would call Ben Klinger at Classic.
Oh yeah, no, I know him. He's the one that referred me to this.
Yeah, I would call Ben and see who they use up there locally.
Oh, okay.
The main piano stores have somebody because they sell digitals. They'll have somebody that maybe you can shadow or do some stuff there. By the way, Stephanie, down the line, if you're ever looking to potentially join the Artisan team, you look us up. Because
Absolutely.
we're booked up about a month and a half now, and it's not great. So.
Oh no.
But anyways, I would talk to them and ask Ben who he would recommend and see if you could chat with them, because there are a lot of digitals out there. However, I'm amazed at how low the rates. I guess it makes sense. They can only charge like $50 for a repair, $75 for a repair. It's kind of like an appliance.
Mm-hmm.
People are only able to spend $50 to get their, I don't know, $300 dishwasher fixed. So it's a very low, you can't make a lot of money at it. But
yeah, no, I mean, I guess the interest is more just having that, that skill set and being able to do the more like broad things, like such as if you do get a call for a digital, like, oh, I can at least diagnose what's wrong with it.
Yeah. Yep. No, that sounds good. Yeah, call Ben. He's a great guy, as you know, and he might be able to kind of pave the road for you there.
Okay, cool.
Have you ever done organ repairs, David?
No, stop it.
I've been thinking about maybe learning about it, because there's only one couple in Texas that does it. It's just two people. That's it.
Hey,
Victor,
what about
I love
harmoniums? You ever repair a
Victor.
harmonium?
Your eyes are
No.
a little bit bigger than your stomach, my friend. No, great.
I've
No,
never worked on one of those, Stephanie.
what we should do is have you set up a meeting, or we can have Alan come in and answer questions. He works on organs. And yeah, he's an organist. He's a really amazing organist, and he works on organs. He doesn't do it for us just because he's just so busy. So I have to go have dinner with my mom. I will talk to you all later. See you on Friday.
Bye. Have fun.